Some stories begin in the most ordinary places, a grocery store, a street corner, or maybe a bank on a quiet afternoon. But sometimes, those ordinary moments reveal the very best and the very worst in people. This story takes us to Los Angeles, where a simple trip to the bank for one elderly woman turned into public humiliation, until an unexpected hero walked through the door. And that hero was none other than Vin Diesel. It was late afternoon at the First Pacific Bank on Wilshire Boulevard. The place was packed, long lines stretching from the counters to the entrance. Customers shifted impatiently, glancing at their watches and sighing under their breath. The air was heavy with frustration. Behind the counter sat Brittany Wallace, a young bank teller with tired eyes and an impatient look. She typed furiously at her computer, barely glancing at the people in front of her. In her mind, some customers mattered more than others, and the woman standing across from her wasn't one of them. Her name was Linda Carter, 73 years old, a retired school teacher. A kind, soft-spoken woman who had spent her life shaping young minds. She was proud of being independent, never asking for handouts. But that day she needed help. "Good afternoon," she said softly. "I think there's been a mistake on my account. I'm seeing fees I wasn't told about." Without looking up, Brittany replied, "Those are standard maintenance fees, ma'am." Linda frowned. "But I've had this account for years, and I've never had these fees before." Brittany sighed loudly, finally glancing at her with irritation. She snatched the papers from Linda's trembling hands, flipped through them without care, and shoved them back. "It's in the fine print of your agreement. If you didn't read it, that's not our fault." A few people in line chuckled quietly. Linda's cheeks flushed. She wasn't trying to cause trouble. She just wanted fairness. Before she could respond, a man in a crisp suit appeared. Carl Jensen, the branch manager. He looked down at her with the kind of smile that wasn't really a smile. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Brittany straightened immediately. "No, sir. Just a customer who doesn't understand policy." Carl turned his focus to Linda. "Ma'am, we have standard fees. If you can't maintain the minimum balance, there's nothing we can do." Linda tried to stay composed. "I've always kept my account in good standing," she said. "I just need someone to review this." Carl chuckled under his breath. "What's in the system is in the system, ma'am. Maybe this bank isn't the right place for you." The room went silent. People glanced away. The sting of humiliation cut deep. Linda lowered her head, holding her papers tight. And then, a deep voice broke the silence. "Why are you talking to her like that?" Every head turned. At the entrance stood a man in jeans, a black t-shirt, and a baseball cap. At first, he looked like any other customer, until he removed his cap. Gasps spread across the room. It was Vin Diesel. Carl froze. "Mr. Diesel, Vin raised a hand. "Doesn't matter who I am. What matters is why you're treating this woman like this." The room held its breath. Vin stepped closer, calm but commanding. "Ma'am, what happened?" he asked Linda. She handed him her papers, still trembling slightly. Vin scanned them carefully, then looked at Carl. "This is a mistake," he said evenly. "You're going to fix it." Carl forced a nervous laugh. "Sir, this is none of your business. We have policies." Vin cut him off. "Policies? Or excuses to humiliate someone who just wants fairness?" A murmur spread through the line of customers. Vin turned to the crowd. "How many of you have had unexpected fees lately?" For a moment, no one spoke. Then one hand went up, then another, then several more. Vin nodded. "So it's not just her. Interesting." He turned back to Carl, his tone calm but sharp. "You said it's all in the system, right? Then let's check the system. Pull up her account." Brittany hesitated, her hands trembling slightly as she began typing. Numbers filled the screen, and the truth was right there. Vin leaned closer. "Well, look at that. These new fees started 2 months ago. Right after your policy change." The crowd murmured again. Vin folded his arms. "You know what I think? You're targeting elderly customers, people less likely to notice or fight back. That's not a policy, Carl. That's a scam." Carl's face turned red. His voice faltered. Vin's tone lowered, firm but controlled. "I don't like bullies, Carl, and I don't like people who take advantage of those who've earned respect." He motioned toward Linda. "This woman spent her life teaching kids. She deserves better than this." From somewhere in the line, a young man raised his phone and started recording. Carl noticed panic flashing in his eyes. Vin smiled faintly. "Yeah, that's right. People deserve to see this." He turned to Brittany. "Reverse every single charge." Not just hers, all of them. Brittany began typing fast, her hands flying across the keyboard. One by one, the fees disappeared from Linda's account. The atmosphere in the bank shifted. Vin nodded slowly. That's more like it. He turned back to Carl. Now let's hear that apology. Carl hesitated, his pride fighting his fear. I apologize, Mrs. Carter, for the way you were treated. Vin raised an eyebrow. Carl took a shaky breath. It was unacceptable. I'm sorry. Linda smiled faintly through her tears. Thank you, she said softly. Vin gave her a small nod, then looked around the room. Let this be a reminder, he said. Policies don't define decency. People do. Applause broke out, quiet at first, then growing. Vin smiled, pulled his cap back on, and walked out of the bank. But the story didn't end there. Someone had been filming the entire thing, and within hours, the video went viral. Headlines exploded across the internet. Vin Diesel defends elderly woman at bank. The bank's corporate office launched an investigation immediately. Within a week, Carl Jensen was removed from his position. Every customer affected by the bogus fees received full refunds. Brittany, the young teller, was placed under review, but ultimately kept her job after testifying that she had been pressured to follow unethical instructions. As for Linda Carter, she went back to her quiet home, her dignity restored. Then one morning she received a letter. It wasn't from the bank. It was from Los Angeles, postmarked from a film studio. Inside was a handwritten note. Mrs. Carter, you didn't need me to stand up for you. You already had the strength. You just needed someone to remind you. I hope this makes you smile. Vin. Tucked inside the envelope was a signed Fast and Furious poster and an invitation to his upcoming movie premiere. Linda laughed softly, shaking her head in disbelief. She set the note down, her hands trembling, but this time not from fear or humiliation, from joy. For the first time in a long while, she felt seen. She felt valued. She felt unstoppable. The world wasn't perfect. It never is. But that day she learned something important. When you stand up for what's right, sometimes the right people show up to stand with you. We live in a world where people like Linda are too often ignored, where kindness and courage seem rare. But every once in a while, someone reminds us that doing the right thing still matters. You don't need fame, money, or power to stand up for what's right. You just need heart. Because in the end, it's not about who you are in the world. It's about what you choose to do when you see someone being treated unfairly. And that day, one act of courage changed everything.